This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're in Newcastle. Delighted to be joined by ring announcer, podcast host, and everything in between, David Diamante. David, welcome to Newcastle. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to see you, Ryan. It's great to be back in Newcastle, one of my favorite cities in England. And, man, big fight week.
Big fight week, yeah. Let's start there then. Lewis Ritson, IBF final eliminator, looking to move in line for a world title shot. I know you're a man that likes to do your background on the fighters we've got on the bill. Let's start with the main event. What kind of fight do you think we can expect Saturday night?
To be really honest with you, I think it's going to be a cracker. I think it's going to be a proper scrap because I think Ponce is a come-forward fighter. He's an Argentinian, and typically they just come with so much heart. I don't think Lewis is going to have to find Jeremias. I think he's going to be right there in the center of the ring to be found. And I think they could basically open up a phone booth and get in and just start slugging away. I think we're going to have a really interesting fight. And you know, Ponce also, he's undefeated, you know, and he's won a bunch of titles, obviously at lower kind of, I mean, he's got the IBO world title, okay, so we can't discount that, but Argentinian champion, South American champion, he's won an IBF, you know, smaller strap, also WBA smaller strap, so, you know, he's been around and he's fought, although he has not been outside of Argentina. He hasn't fought outside of Argentina, so the question begs, how will he deal with the Geordie fans? Because they're some of the loudest in the world. But I will say this. I spent a lot of time in Argentina, been to many fights in Argentina and called fights in Argentina. And the Argentinian fans, I got to say, they're pretty loud and proud. So I think Ponce is going to have maybe seen an atmosphere similar. I mean, man, back in the day in Buenos Aires, there was a place called Luna Park, and it was one of my favorite places to see fights. Just incredible. It's still there, Luna Park, but they don't have fights there anymore, which is a shame. But if you ever go to see like the Boca Juniors play, I mean, these fans are maniacal. I think there was even some story I read. This is a few years ago. Some guy like stole a public bus to like get to a football match, and their derby is of course the River played against the Boca Juniors. But it's crazy because I know here you guys have NUFC against Sunderland. So that's the big derby here, which I understand is also crazy. And I would like to one day hopefully catch one of those derbies. But I think it's going to be a great fight. I know we only have about 1,000 fans in the stands, but if you translate that into any other type of fans, it's going to be a lot because Geordies, they bring it. So I think it's going to be great, and I think there'll be an atmosphere. I think this is a really important fight for Lewis, coming off the back of the Miguel Vasquez fight. I think that was very tough for him. I think that it's really unfair. You know, Lewis he's a great guy, tons of heart, and we've seen him do some really great things. I mean, he won the British and defended it 3 times in a record amount of rounds. I think 11 rounds. But that he won and defended it. That's 4 opponents in 11 rounds. I don't think that's ever been done. So he retains the Lonsdale belt, you know, and sitting on his dad Davy's mantle. Okay, so we've seen him do some great stuff like that. We saw him in a great tear-up against Robbie Davies Jr. I loved that fight. Oh, man. Fans out there, if you haven't seen that fight, it's a great, like, Newcastle v. Liverpool fight. Really great domestic dust-up. That was a great fight. And listen, I think Lewis kind of got caught a little bit out in the cold with Vasquez. I think they underestimated his boxing. I think they looked on the ledger and they say, oh, here's a Mexican opponent. He's going to come forward and we could just bang with him, you know. And I think that Vasquez, with his lateral movement and all the boxing, it kind of befuddled Ritson. I don't think he was ready for that. I think behind closed doors was really weird. I mean, you could hear a fucking mouse fart. I mean, it was quiet in there, right? Pardon my language, guys. But it was really quiet, and I just think that he didn't know really where to go with it, and it was a hard place to be, and he was not able to make the adjustment. That being said, guys lose fights. That happens all the time. He's not the judge. So the fact that he got the decision that he got, that, look, I'm not going to say whether I think he won or lost, but everyone else can say it for me. And even Lewis himself said, look, he got a gift, okay? Many people called it the worst decision of 2020. You know, I was going to say there's the famous picture of one of the judges holding something up. Many people thought it was a cell phone. I'm not going to say any names, but it is what it is. It was the whole thing was kind of a fiasco, to be honest. But the fact that a fighter like Lewis got the abuse on social media afterwards, I just think is unfounded. And I think, and I've said this before many times, I think sometimes in boxing, a win can be a loss, and I think also sometimes a loss can be a win. For example, Timothy Bradley beating Pacquiao the first time they met. He really lost the fight, but the judges gave it to him. Again, he wasn't a judge, and people just, really came down hard on him for that. And I just don't think that's fair to do to the fighter. Again, the next fight, it produced that epic classic with Ruslan Provodnikov. So, look, in a way, I'm kind of happy that it all worked out the way it did. But I don't think it was fair to Desert Storm, to Timothy Bradley. The other way where a loss can be a win, look at Paulie Malignaggi's loss to Miguel Cotto. He fought totally like a warrior, valiantly, broke an eye socket, came out on the losing end, but like his stock just shot up because everyone said, that's a warrior right there. We want to see him again. So I think, you can't just sometimes look at the W's and the L's in the win and the loss column, but you got to look from 10,000 feet above. And I think Saturday we're really going to see a performance out of Lewis. And also, he left Neil Fannin. He went out of Hartlepool. He's training now with his pops, Davey. And I just think that, I think you're going to see him be happier because I think that nothing against Neil Fannin, it's not about that, but I think just, having to do camp down in Hartlepool, he's got his daughter Darcy, he's got another baby on the way, he's got a fiance now, Samantha, and I just think that he's going to be happier here, and I think we're going to see a great performance. I think it's going to be a great fight.
We've seen it labelled the IBF final eliminator. Josh Taylor obviously cleaned up all of those belts recently. Is this as much for Lewis Ritson, not necessarily about being there for a Josh Taylor fight? We know Josh has possibly got other commitments, but about being there in case he decides to do what Terence Crawford did and move up and be right there in the pack for that vacant title potentially?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that's exactly what Lewis wants. I think that he believes Josh Taylor's cleaned out that division. Obviously, he's got the mandatory WBO with Jack Catterall, but I think that he's like, look, I don't think he wants to tangle with Josh Taylor, and I don't blame him. I don't really know who does besides just a few people on the planet. But I think that Taylor and Crawford would be great to see, and I think that's what I think Lewis is hoping for, that Taylor moves up and does take the Crawford fight at 147, and it leaves those belts vacant, and then he possibly has a shot.
Just wanted to ask you about the rest of the card before we move on, David. There is a lot of Northeast talent on this card. We've got the unbeaten April Hunter, Tommy Ward's trying to stay in the mix for a sort of world title shot, Joe Law's looking to get back to winning ways, and Cyrus Patterson as well, ex-Team GB, amateur star turning over for this region, and we've still got a lot of great amateur fighters as well. Do you think we could be coming up to a golden era for this part of England in terms of boxing?
And you also have the McCormack twins that are about to head to Tokyo, and we'll see what they can do there. But imagine if those guys come back with medals. The Northeast could be looking really, really strong. And like you said, Cyrus Pattinson turning over. Joe Laws, he had a really tough fight against Ryland Charlton, but he's back in action. It's great to see an April Hunter. We just did her fight in Spain, in Barcelona. Really enjoy watching her. It could be another golden era. Let's hope. I really hope so, because I love it up here. So I hope we're doing a lot more fights up here.
David, let's talk about a few things away from this. Last week we got the news through. It was the worst kept secret in boxing, but Matchroom are not going to renew their Sky deal. They're going to be going with DAZN for their UK coverage from now on. What was your reaction to that? Do you think it's the right move at this time going forward for Eddie Hearn and the team?
Well, it must have been, because that's the move that they made. I know that. They've been together, 25 years, and I know it was a very tough decision for them to make, but I think at the end of the day, they're the ones that are looking at the business model and figuring it out. So for me, I call the fights, but I'm really excited just because I think that, I love Sky Sports and I love the whole team, top-notch people, and what an honor to be able to announce on that platform and with such top talent over the years. I hope that those relationships will span for many more years to come. But I think right now the whole global situation with DAZN is very, very exciting. I think that Matchroom is doing stuff that no other promoter or promotion has ever done, or foreseeably maybe even will ever do in the future. I mean, our team is just filled with madmen. I mean, like, you know, Eddie, Frank, myself, and the other Matchroom folk, like, we grind, man. We work really hard, and we love it, and we're passionate about it. And it's very, I love what we do, but it's not easy. Every week being in a different city, and there's just a lot to do. And not everyone's cut out for it. So I just can't see it ever happening again like this. And it's really exciting to be at the precipice and at the helm of such an incredible time in boxing.
You mentioned something there that I want to touch on, David. I'm sure you wouldn't swap your job for anything in the world. You get to go around and see the world and do something you enjoy. But you said it there, you're away from home a lot. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it. How much have you sacrificed, you know, in your own personal life to do this job and to be traveling around as much as you do as well?
You got to take the bitter with the sweet, and you got to pay to play, and that's what it is. And, you know, you make choices in life, and this is my choice. So I don't look back. I have no regrets. I love what I do. You know, I got a lot of scars, but it is what it is.
In terms of this move, DAZN are going to be handling the UK coverage for Matchroom now. As you said, they're looking to do things that haven't been done before. The press release was very positive, said we're going to get some huge fights coming. But Sky as well have made their moves. They're not going to pull out of boxing. They're going to be showing the top-ranked fights from the US from now on. It looks like they're going to be working with several UK promoters. Is this a win-win for the fans that we're getting more boxing on Sky, and we've also got this Matchroom coverage on DAZN now?
I would think so. I don't know what's going to happen with Sky, but I'm sure that they're going to be just fine. I mean, first of all, I think boxing is just a very small part of their overall business, number one. But number two, I'm sure they're going to pick up plenty of boxing. So I think they're going to be fine. And I know for sure we're going to be fine. So you put those together and the fans are going to be just great. So hopefully so. And that's really what it is. And just bringing value to the fans, you know, and just a lot of great fights. And I think that's what's coming down the pike. In fact, I'm pretty sure of it.
We had something a bit different on Sky over the weekend. Not everyone was a fan of it. It wasn't for everybody. I know Eddie Hearn said it wasn't for him. But we had Floyd Mayweather back in the ring. Exhibition bout against Logan Paul out there in the States. Did you catch any of the fight? And what do you make of the whole thing of Floyd coming back and fighting these guys as well? Do you think he's earned that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I watched it, and I'll say this. I mean, I know a lot of people feel a lot of different ways about it. But watching the fight, I just have to say that it was a lot more competitive than I thought it would be. And I feel like the youth and the strength of Logan Paul against the obviously the incredible experience of Floyd, but also his age, his inactivity, and his size, it actually, I mean, it was more competitive than I thought. It really was. And I mean, I think you have to give credit to Logan Paul for going the distance. I think Floyd was trying to get him out of there. I mean, if you watch that fight, Floyd punched him really hard several times. You know, he wasn't holding back. Like he was swinging. But I think, you know, obviously it looked like Logan came out and won the first couple of rounds. You know, he was using his size and really just kind of trying to pummel Mayweather. Now, he really didn't land too many clean shots. He landed a couple, which I was even impressed with, to be honest. But it looked like Floyd could be in a touchy situation there just because of the size and the youth of Logan Paul. But then after that, it was just all Mayweather. And what you saw was Logan completely faded. After like round three, he was totally gassed, and he was really just hugging and holding on to Floyd pretty much to survive. But that being said, both guys came out fiscally ahead, so good for them, and it's entertainment. It's more eyes on boxing. The way I look at it, to be really honest with you, I mean, I just feel like people hate up, okay? So, like, if you're plying your wear as a pro fighter, like, you need to get out there and do more to get eyes on you, to get a fan base going, to do, you got to speak to the media. You have to get out there and you got to grind. You can't just, it's not enough just to be a good fighter or a great fighter these days. You have to really, to transcend the sport, you have to do more. And we've seen that with a guy like a De La Hoya or with a Mike Tyson, you know, over the years, and Muhammad Ali. Like, of course he was one of the greatest, but he was also one of the greatest outside the ring. So it's not just about his boxing ability that we call him the greatest of all time. So it takes a lot, and Floyd has done that. And this Logan Paul guy, even though he has not done it in the fight game, he's done it in the YouTube game, I guess. I don't know a ton about his. I mean, I know him and I know his brother Jake because I've been with those guys and called fights with those guys, but I don't know about their YouTube career because to be honest, I really haven't watched any of that stuff. I don't know, but I know they're huge with that. So they've grafted. They've put in the work for many years to have an audience, and this is what they're choosing to do with it. And like me, I'm not concerned with it at all. I think it's great. If they want to do it, go ahead. They can do it. And, I think it just goes to show a lot. Like, you look at Floyd, and he turned over in, 1996? Manny Pacquiao turned over in 1995, okay? And Floyd turned over late 1996. Pacquiao turned over in January of 95. And Pacquiao's about to fight the boogeyman at 147. He's about to fight Errol Spence. Now, I'm not trying to take away anything from Floyd, but it just goes to show the greatness of Manny Pacquiao. And I think we should really say, wow, that's a real prize fighter. And this is a guy that's got a huge set of balls, and he'll take on all comers. It's amazing. It's really amazing what Manny Pacquiao's doing, taking on Errol Spence. And again, just to finish up, Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather, good on them for making the money. And if people want to watch it, they can spend the money any way they want. To me, it's more eyes on boxing, and I have no problem with it.
Let's go back to Manny Pacquiao then. I was going to come on to it, and you mentioned it there. 42 years of age, fighting Errol Spence Jr. He's already one of the all-time greats, but if he pulls that off at 42 years old, where is he amongst the best ever, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer, and if you look at his CV, it's scary. It's like a who's who. Even like his last fights, it's like Thurman and Matisse, and he's just fought so many great fighters and great fights as of recently. And even the loss with Jeff Horn, a lot of people think he won that fight. So yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. And again, we've seen a fighter that's taken losses. Pacquiao's taken losses, but it's the way you come back, and he's done that. And he's really an amazing fighter. I think we're gonna have to wait to see at the end of the day where he is in the ranks of the all-time greats. But I think he's probably up there.
We had a quote on the Boxing Social podcast from Freddie Roach, who's been quoted over the years as saying he's not so keen on the Terence Crawford fight for Manny Pacquiao, but he loves the Errol Spence fight. Stylistically, can you see why Freddie would say that?
I do, especially, I don't know if Errol is the same Errol after the car accident. I think he might be somewhat, maybe on the back end, or maybe just a touch depleted, I'm not saying he's a depleted fighter at all, but I mean, just not where he was at the pinnacle. And I think Pacquiao just shows so many different angles. He's an ambush fighter, coming and jumping into different spots, and I think that could really give Spence some problems.
Let's talk heavyweights, David. We were all hoping to get Joshua Fury. We're not going to get Joshua Fury. We are going to, by the looks of things, get Joshua Usyk and Fury Wilder 3. Were you surprised when the news came out about the arbitration and that we weren't going to get this undisputed fight we'd all been clamouring for?
Not at all. Not at all, because it's boxing. I'm not surprised by almost anything. But was I disappointed? Yes, of course. But not really too surprised, because those things happen, and we all did know about the arbitration. So we knew that was a possibility. It is what happened. It's unfortunate. We still might see Fury Joshua. We also might not see Fury Joshua. Hopefully we do. But the situation is that there's going to be somewhat of a different Deontay Wilder. I don't know how it's going to look. But I think we will see a different fight in Fight 3 than we saw in the first two. I'm not saying he's going to win. I think that you'd have to say that Fury is the favorite in that fight. I think you'd be foolish to say he's not. However, anyone with Deontay Wilder's power has a shot. This is a fist fight. I've said it before, anything can happen in a fist fight, especially when you've got dynamite in your gloves. So Deontay Wilder, of course, has a shot. And then with Usyk, man, he is a slick fighter. Now, of course, many people think, oh, he's just a cruiserweight. He didn't look great against Witherspoon. He didn't look, that great against Derek Chisora. But, Alexander Usyk, doesn't play games. You see him the other day skipping rope, saying Anthony Joshua, and he's coming. He's coming to win. He's got an O. He's the one thing he doesn't know how to do is lose. So he's going to come to try to give AJ fits. Will he? I don't know. I would think AJ would have to be the favorite in that fight. And I mean, especially with AJ's power, and especially with Usyk's lack of power. He wasn't a big knockout puncher even at cruiserweight. So at heavyweight, with a true heavyweight like an AJ, who's super tall, super big, and just an Adonis, I think it's going to be hard for him to hurt AJ. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be hard for him, and I think AJ can definitely hurt anyone on the planet. So Usyk, from last time I checked, is a human being on the planet. So even though Usyk seemed to have a pretty granite chin up until this moment, I think anyone takes a flush AJ shot, night-night.
David, I just wanted to go back to Fury Wilder quickly before we wrap up. You said that you think we'd see a different Deontay Wilder. We've all seen the snippets of him training with Malik Scott, looking to make little adjustments. What can Deontay Wilder do, and what does he have to do to make things different this time around?
In the second fight, he landed shots on Fury. He landed a couple clean shots on Fury. Now, he didn't hurt Fury, but he actually did land some shots on Fury. So it's not like it was a complete. I mean, it was definitely a dominant performance, but he landed shots. So he can do that. He's done that. He did that in the second fight. I think he can do it again. So he needs to do that and land combinations, and he's got to make them count. And I just think you have to go in. I mean, so many of Wilder's performances have just been lackluster until they're not. Like with the Luis Ortiz fight, it's like he lost every second of every round of that fight till he sparked him, right? I mean, it was like, I remember watching that fight. We'd done a fight in Liverpool the night before, and I was in Liverpool, Merseyside, right there, and I think it was whatever hotel it was. And I had him put the fight on the big screen, and everyone else had fallen asleep, and I stayed up till the wee hours to watch that fight. And I'm sitting there screaming, and I think the janitor was looking at me like, this guy's insane. But, I'm yelling at the TV and this and that, and you gotta be busy. You have to use your boxing. I mean, use your attributes. I think part of the problem is that Tyson Fury, his boxing is so skilled, and Wilder's has been kind of shown not to be so great. So it's hard to learn that much boxing in such a short time. But he has to do the best he can. And obviously you want to jab and you want to use your power shots. So, I just think that you can't go in there with a defeatist attitude. I think you got to go in there wanting to take Fury's head off.
David, I'm going to leave you there. Enjoy your evening. Thank you as always for speaking to Boxing Social. Enjoy Newcastle. I'm sure we'll catch you later in the week.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the fights on Saturday.